Tom was an ordinary man living on a quiet human colony called Rust Point. It was far away from Earth. On the edge of known space, the colony was small, dusty, and a little boring. People worked hard every day fixing machines, managing water supplies, and keeping the colony running. Tom worked as a technician. He repaired drones, cleaned solar panels, and helped maintain the power grid. He lived alone in a small metal house. He had a simple bed, an old cooking machine, and a garden with a few stubborn plants that barely grew. One evening, after a long day of fixing broken wires and burned circuits, Tom sat on the roof of his house and looked up at the stars. The sky was clear. The stars shone like silver dust across the darkness. He held a cup of hot tea and spoke out loud, not really talking to anyone. "Maybe I need a change in life," he said and laughed. "Maybe I need a wife to make things interesting." He looked around. No one was near. Everyone was either sleeping or watching the old news broadcasts in their homes. Tom leaned back and added with a grin, "Hey, space, send me a wife from another planet or something." What Tom didn't know was that his small communication device was still on. It had been set to open frequency during the last repair task. His words, though light and playful, traveled into space. They moved across radio bands and bounced off old satellites. They passed through listening posts and drifted far into deep space. Most signals get lost or fade away, but not this one. This signal reached a ship that should not have been there. A black ship made of metal and bone floated silent in the cold dark. Inside, a figure sat in a throne made of silver stone. She was tall, pale, and silent. Her armor was dark and carved with symbols older than human language. Her name was Velra. She was a Warbride of the ancient blood clans. Her kind was nearly forgotten by the galaxy. Long ago, they were known as strong warriors, bound by vows of honor, duty, and protection. Now they were scattered, hiding from enemies that hunted them. But Velra still followed the old ways. She still waited for a call, a bond, a promise to fulfill. And then she heard it, a voice. Soft and light, yet clear and direct. "Send me a wife from another planet," to Velra. This was no joke. Her people had once formed deep bonds with human warriors long before Earth's records began. It was said that when a human called for a bride from the stars, a war bride would answer. To her, this was a sacred vow spoken across time. Velra stood up, her silver eyes glowing faintly. She walked to her ship's control seat and gave a command in her old language. Her ship turned toward Rust Point. She whispered one word, "Yes," back. On Rust Point, Tom had forgotten his words. He cleaned his dishes, checked his repair schedule for the next day, and went to bed. He did not know that something ancient and powerful was now moving toward his small world. 3 nights later, everything changed. A dark shadow passed over the colony. People ran outside and looked up. A black ship with long wings and sharp angles hovered above them. It made no sound. It simply floated like a silent predator in the sky. Alarms started ringing. The colony's guards grabbed old weapons. No one knew what the ship was or where it came from. Messages were sent to nearby systems. Fear spread fast. Then a hatch opened under the ship. A single figure dropped from the sky, landing with perfect balance near the colony's center. Dust flew around her boots as she stood tall. She was not human. Her skin was pale white like marble. Her eyes were silver. She wore armor made of dark metal and bones shaped into symbols. On her back was a long curved blade, glowing softly. She looked around and spoke clearly. "I have come to accept the proposal." No one understood. The guards pointed weapons at her, but she ignored them. She walked calmly through the crowd and stopped in front of Tom's house. Tom had come outside after the alarms. He saw the tall woman standing there, her silver eyes staring directly at him. "Are you Tom?" she asked. He blinked. "Yes." "Who are you?" "I am Velra. You called for a wife from the stars." "I have come." "I accept." Tom stared at her, mouth open. He remembered the joke, the words he said while laughing alone under the stars. He felt his face turn red. "Wait, that was not serious." "I was just talking to myself," he said quickly. Velra tilted her head slightly. "Your signal was clear. You made a call. A vow spoken through space carries power. I'm here to honor it. Tom raised his hand slowly. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't think anyone was listening. Velra nodded once. But I listened, and I have come. The crowd around them watched in silence. Some people whispered. Others backed away. The guards lowered their weapons, but didn't leave. The air felt heavy. Tom looked at Velra. She was strange and dangerous, but there was something calm in her voice. She didn't seem like she wanted to hurt anyone. But still, she had come all this way because of something he said without thinking. So you really think we're married now? He asked. Velra looked at him with steady eyes. The ceremony has not begun, but I have accepted the bond. I am your Warbride, and I will stay. Tom took a deep breath. His life had been quiet and simple for years. Now, everything had changed in one moment. He looked at her again, and said, "All right, let's talk." Tom never expected his life to change from one small joke, but now Velra was inside his house. Standing tall in her strange armor, she moved slowly, with grace like a trained fighter. Her silver eyes scanned the room. She did not blink much. "This space is small but strong," Velra said, placing her hand on the wall. "It's just a house," Tom replied. "A bit old, but it works." She nodded and stepped carefully around the room. She looked at the cooking machine, the solar heater, and the small table with 2 chairs. Then she turned to Tom. "Where will the bond ceremony take place?" Tom looked confused. "What ceremony?" "The joining," she said. "A warbride does not live with her partner without a ceremony of alliance. It is law." Tom scratched his head. "You really believe we are going to be together like married?" "You made the call," I answered. "The bond is sacred, but the ceremony has rules." Tom sighed and sat down on the edge of the chair. Velra remained standing. "Look, Velra, I'm not trying to be rude, but I didn't know anyone would hear that. It was just a lonely joke. I wasn't really expecting someone to come flying from the stars." Velra slowly walked closer and sat across from him. Her armor made a soft sound as she moved. "In my culture, words are not thrown away. A spoken wish is a binding thread, especially when heard by the last warbride." Tom blinked. "The last one." Velra looked down for a moment, then up again. "My people were once many. We protected planets, fought side by side with the first human explorers. But during the wars of silence, we were hunted. Only a few of us remain, sleeping or hiding. I remained awake to listen for a call. That call was yours." Tom felt his chest tighten a little. He never meant to wake anyone from a past full of war and pain. He was just tired of fixing drones and eating alone. "You really have no home?" he asked. "This is my home now," she answered. "Where you are?" "I am." Tom stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, people were watching from a distance. Some guards were still near his gate. Children peeked from behind crates. His life was no longer private. "People are scared of you," he said. "They think you might attack. I only fight those who try to harm my bondmate or break the honor." Tom turned around. "So if I don't marry you, does that break your honor?" Velra stood again, now facing him. "You made a call. If you reject the bond, I will return to silence. But I will not attack. I am not here to take. I am here to give." Her voice was steady, not angry. She sounded almost sad. Tom didn't know what to say. He didn't want to hurt her, but he also didn't know how to be with someone who came from a forgotten race of warriors. He looked at her carefully. Her skin was smooth and pale like ice. Her hair was dark and tied back. Her face had sharp features, but there was softness in her eyes. Not human softness, but something close. "All right," he said. "Let's slow things down. Maybe we start with something simple, like dinner. You eat food, right?" Velra paused. "I feed on energy, not flesh. I can take energy from the sun, from storms, or from deep metals. But I will sit beside you while you eat." Tom smiled. "That's a start." They spent the evening in quiet conversation. Tom made a simple meal of rice and dried vegetables. Velra watched with interest as he cooked. She touched the flame on the stove with her fingers and smiled. "This fire is small, but alive." Tom laughed a little. "That's how I feel most days." Velra didn't laugh, but she nodded. Then we are alike in some way. After the meal, Velra went outside and stood in the garden. She removed her boots and pressed her feet into the soil. This ground is strong. It remembers battle. Tom joined her. This colony never had battles, just storms and broken equipment. She looked up at the stars. Storms are battles, and broken things can be signs of great struggle. He sat on the garden bench and watched her stand still under the moonlight. She looked like a statue, calm and ready, the silver blade on her back shimmered as the wind passed through the trees. "You really don't sleep?" he asked. "I enter stillness. I rest without dreams. It is enough." He nodded. "I guess that works." Velra turned to him. "I will protect this place. Even if we are not joined by the ceremony, I have given my word." Tom looked at her and thought about everything she had said. She was strange, but honest. She spoke with honor and never once raised her voice. She didn't force anything. She only answered a call she believed was real. "Velra," he said, "if we're going to live in the same house, we'll need to understand each other. I'll try to learn about your ways, and maybe you can learn about mine." She walked to him and bowed slightly. "That is a fair path." Tom smiled. "Then let's begin there." Velra stood by the door as Tom went inside. She stayed outside until the stars shifted and the night grew quiet. The colony was still unsure of her. The people whispered and watched, but none of them knew the full story yet. None of them knew that something powerful had just returned to the edge of space, and it had started with a lonely man's quiet joke. It had been 4 days since Velra arrived. Tom's home had changed completely. The small house once looked simple and quiet, with smooth walls, soft lights, and a few old chairs. Now it looked like part of a warrior's camp. Velra brought her belongings from her ship. She placed strange items in every room. On the living room wall, she hung a long silver banner with black symbols. She placed a carved stone bowl near the doorway. It held a glowing red crystal that hummed softly. A shield made from a creature's hide rested beside the bed. Tom tried not to complain. He understood that these things had meaning for her. But sometimes he just stared at the wall and whispered to himself, "This isn't a normal relationship." Velra noticed his struggle. One morning, while sharpening her blade in the kitchen, she asked, "Does the change disturb you?" Tom looked at the blade. It glowed faintly with every movement. "It's not the worst thing. It's just fast. I'm not used to bones on the table and a sword in the sink." Velra looked down. "I did not mean to bring discomfort. These are sacred tools of protection. But I will adjust. I wish to learn your ways as well." Tom smiled. "That's fair. Maybe we can find a balance." Later that day, Velra joined him outside as he worked on a broken power line. She watched closely and asked questions about wires, fuses, and circuits. She moved quickly and followed instructions better than anyone Tom had trained before. "You learn fast," Tom said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "My people train in many skills, not just battle. Understanding power is part of survival." By the end of the day, Velra had repaired to drones and sealed a damaged solar pipe. Tom gave her a bottle of cold water and said, "You're officially part of the colony's staff now." Velra held the bottle carefully. "Then I will serve with honor." Though Velra was quiet, the colony had started talking. Some people respected her skills. Others still felt nervous. A few even moved away from Tom's home, not wanting to be near the Warbride. Tom heard the whispers during his shift. Some called her a danger. Others said she might bring war. Tom tried to defend her, but knew that fear spread faster than truth. That night, as they sat in the garden, Velra looked up at the stars. "They fear me," she said. Tom nodded. "They don't understand you." She was silent for a moment. Then she spoke again. "I can leave if it brings peace." Tom shook his head. "No, you came because of something I said. That means I have a part in this. I won't send you away just because others are scared." Velra turned to him. "In my time, humans were bold. They stood beside us, blade to blade. Have your people forgotten courage?" Tom looked down. "Maybe. Or maybe we've just lived in peace for too long. We don't know what to do with someone who carries a sword in her sleep." Velra gave a rare small smile. Then let them watch. Let them see that I protect, not destroy. The next day, trouble came. An alarm rang across the colony. A scout drone had picked up a signal from the hills north of the settlement. Something was moving fast toward Rust Point. The guards scrambled. Defense lines were checked. But the colony's weapons were old and weak. Tom arrived at the command center and saw the image on the screen. A group of strange machines was moving through the dust. They had long legs and sharp claws. Their metal skin was marked with the symbol of the Zern. Tom's heart dropped. He had heard stories about the Zern, raiders from deep space, cold and ruthless. They hunted and stole from weak colonies. Velra stood behind him. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with focus. I know them, she said. They once hunted my kind. They leave no survivors. The commander of the colony, an older man named Bren, looked nervous. We don't have the weapons to stop them. Velra stepped forward. Then let me lead. Bren looked at Tom. You trust her? Tom nodded. More than I trust a broken turret. The colony had no choice. Velra took command of the defense. She moved with precision, placing traps, assigning tasks, and showing the guards how to fight. With speed and focus, Tom stayed near her, helping with power systems and connecting comm lines. He watched her train the guards in hand-to-hand combat and teach them how to move as one unit. She's not just a fighter, Tom whispered. She's a leader. When the Zern machines reached the edge of the colony, Velra was waiting with a blade in one hand and a signal device in the other. Let them come, she said. The battle was quick but fierce. Velra led the charge. She moved like lightning, cutting through machines and using her armor to shield others. Her blade glowed red with every strike. The guards followed her, shouting orders and holding the lines. Tom used drones to confuse the enemy and draw fire away from the main buildings. After 20 minutes, the last of the Zern machines fell. The ground was covered in dust and broken metal. Not a single colonist was lost. Cheers erupted from the streets. People who had once feared Velra now looked at her with wide eyes and respect. She stood tall, breathing calmly, her blade lowered but still ready. Bren walked over and saluted her. You saved us. Velra nodded. It was my duty. Tom ran up to her and smiled. That was amazing. You were like fire in human form. Velra looked at him with a calm expression. I am your Warbride. I protect what you call home. Tom stood beside her and looked at the people gathering around. Maybe this was not the life he expected. But maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something greater. After the battle with the Zern machines, everything changed in the colony. Velra was no longer a strange visitor. People now saw her as a protector. Children waved at her from behind fences. Workers greeted her with nods. Even the guards asked her for training advice. Tom felt proud but also a little overwhelmed. His house had become the center of attention. People came to ask questions, offer gifts, or just get a look at the Warbride who had saved them all. Velra remained calm through it all. She never asked for thanks. She spent her mornings training in the garden and her evenings helping repair damaged buildings. Tom often found her standing in silence, staring at the stars. One evening, Tom joined her on the roof. He brought 2 chairs and a blanket. The air was cool. The stars above looked peaceful, but Velra's eyes were sharp. They will return, she said softly. Tom looked at her. The Zern? She nodded. That was only a scout group. They test before they strike. The real storm is coming. Tom leaned back in his chair. Then we need a plan. Velra looked at him with steady eyes. There is something I must do. Something old and forbidden. He sat up straighter. What is it? Velra looked to the sky. My people once used signal stones. They were built long ago and hidden across the stars. If I activate one, it will send a call to the other Warbrides who still sleep. Some may answer. Tom frowned. But you said most of your kind were gone. Most are lost. But a few entered stasis chambers before the fall. They are waiting. If they hear my call, they may rise again. Tom stood up. Then do it. We need help. Velra hesitated. The signal will also reach our enemies. The Zern will know we are waking. They will strike harder, but I believe we must take the risk. Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone anymore. We'll face them together. That night, Velra returned to her ship. Inside, she opened a sealed chamber with symbols glowing in the dark. She placed her hand on the center panel and spoke in her native tongue. The stone lit up. A sound like a low bell rang through the air. It echoed into space. Silent to human ears, but powerful to those who remember the old ways. Across distant moons and broken planets, something began to stir. Back in Rust Point, the colony prepared for the worst. Velra trained the guards every day. Tom helped build stronger walls and connected new power sources. People worked together like never before. Then, after 5 days, the sky changed out at sunrise. Two ships appeared above the colony. They were dark and shaped like wings. At first, the guards raised their weapons, but Velra stepped forward. Eyes wide, they heard the call. The ships landed gently. From one ship came a tall figure in black and gold armor. From the other came a shorter warrior with twin blades on her back. Both looked strong and pale like Velra. Their eyes burned with the same silver light. Velra stepped forward and spoke in the old tongue. The other two responded with honor. Then they turned to Tom. This is my bondmate, Velra said. The warriors bowed slightly. Then we will protect him. Tom felt strange being bowed to, but he nodded politely. Thanks. I think we're going to need all the help we can get. Velra gathered with the other Warbrides in the command center. They shared maps, signals, and knowledge about the Zern. Tom watched quietly, amazed at how fast they planned. These were not just fighters. They were tacticians, trained in ancient wars. By evening, they had built a strategy, but the next day brought bad news. One of the outer colonies sent a message. Their defenses had fallen. The Zern fleet was moving fast, destroying everything in their path. Rust Point was next. Tom stood beside Velra as the message ended. His heart was heavy. They're coming, and soon. Velra placed a hand on his. Then we fight here, together. The colony went into full alert. Bunkers were prepared. Drones were upgraded. Weapons were charged. The Warbrides placed energy traps around the colony's border. Every person had a task. On the day the sky turned red, they knew the time had come. From the horizon, black clouds rose. They were not clouds but ships, dozens of them. The Zern had arrived. People stood at their posts. The Warbrides walked along the lines, speaking calmly. Velra stood at the front gate with Tom by her side. This is where we hold, she said. The battle began with fire from the sky. The colony shook. Drones flew into the air to meet the enemy. The Warbrides moved with speed and power, slicing through machines and guiding the defenders. Tom worked from the control center, managing power grids and weapon turrets. He stayed in contact with Velra through a headset. We need more power. At the north wall, she said. Redirecting now, Tom replied. The fighting lasted for hours. Explosions lit the sky. Smoke filled the air. But the defenders held their ground. Every time a Zern machine reached the walls, a Warbride was there to stop it. Velra fought like fire. Her blade cut through armor with ease. Her movements were sharp and perfect. She defended to wounded guards with only one arm while holding a broken tower in place with the other. Tom watched from the screens, heart pounding. He had never seen anyone fight like her. Then a warning flashed on the main panel. A large Zern walker was moving toward the center of the colony. It was huge, with 6 legs and a cannon on its back. No one was near it. Tom didn't wait. He grabbed a small drone controller and ran outside. He jumped on a bike and drove toward the walker. He used the controller to guide 3 armed drones. Toward the enemy, he reached a hill and saw the machine below. He pressed the command. The drones attacked. The explosion was bright, shaking the ground. The walker stopped moving, but Tom didn't move either. Velra saw the smoke and ran to the hill. She found Tom lying on the ground. He was breathing, but had a deep wound on his leg. She lifted him gently. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were full of fear. You fought with courage. Now rest. Tom looked up at her. Did we win? Velra nodded. The colony stands. He smiled. Then it was worth it. She carried him to the medical station, staying by his side as the machines began to heal him. Outside, the people of Rust Point cheered. The Zern were gone. The war was not over, but the colony had survived. And Tom knew one thing for sure. This Warbride was not just his protector. She was now part of his world. The battle was over, but the scars were fresh. Smoke still rose from the burned fields. Craters marked the roads near the colony gates. Broken machines and shattered armor were scattered across the land. People moved slowly, checking damage and helping the wounded. Inside the medical building, Tom lay on a soft bed. His leg was wrapped in a healing brace. A machine beside him gave soft beeps as it repaired the torn muscle. He was awake, but tired. Velra sat beside him. She had not left his side since the battle ended. Her armor was cracked, her shoulder bleeding. But she stayed close. Her hand rested gently on his. "You were brave," she said. Tom smiled weakly. "I didn't plan to be. It just happened. You saved the colony's core," she said. "That walker would have destroyed everything." Tom looked around the room. "And you saved me." Velra nodded. "It is the duty of a Warbride to protect her bondmate." Tom gave a small laugh. "I still can't believe I said that out loud. Just a joke about wanting a wife. And now look where we are." Velra looked into his eyes. "It may have started as a joke, but this is not a joke anymore." Outside, the colony was slowly returning to order. Commander Bren walked the streets with a data pad, checking reports. Guards cleaned weapons. Farmers began clearing fields again. Children helped stack food packs. But one thing had changed. No one looked at Velra with fear now. People greeted her with respect. The other Warbrides who answered her call were also welcomed. They helped repair buildings, taught the guards new techniques, and even shared stories of ancient battles. For the first time, humans and Warbrides stood as allies again. One afternoon, while Tom rested in a wheelchair near the garden, a small group of colonists came to visit. An older woman named Mira stepped forward and handed him a folded cloth. "What's this?" Tom asked. She smiled. "A banner. For your house. We made it to show that this place stands for unity." Tom opened the cloth. It showed two symbols. One was the mark of the human colony. The other was the mark of the Warbrides. The two were connected by a single thread of gold. Velra looked at it and gave a small nod. "It is beautiful." Tom smiled. "Thank you. We'll hang it above the door." That evening, Velra stood on the rooftop while Tom watched from a chair below. She stared at the stars, as always, but this time her face looked calm. Tom called up to her. "What are you thinking?" "I feel the presence of others," she said. "Warbrides waking, worlds turning." Tom nodded. "So we're not alone anymore." "No," she replied. "But something else is coming." He frowned. "Worse than the Zern." "Yes," she said. "The Zern were hunters, but something else has moved, something that fears the rise of Warbrides and humans together." Tom leaned back in his chair. "Then we need to keep preparing." Velra climbed down and sat beside him. "The ceremony must happen soon." Tom raised an eyebrow. "You mean the joining ceremony?" "Yes," she said. "The bond must be completed. It gives strength. It gives protection. You will not just be my partner. You will be my shield and voice in the stars." Tom took a deep breath. "That sounds serious." "It is," she said. "But I will not force it." Tom looked at her. She had stood by him, fought for him, and saved his life. She had never lied, never demanded, and never turned away from danger. He knew now this was not just a strange event. It was something real. "Then I accept," he said. Velra's eyes brightened. She stood, placed a hand over her heart, and whispered a word in her old language. Then she looked at him again. "The ceremony begins at moonrise tomorrow." Word spread quickly through the colony. People cleaned the streets. Lights were placed around the central square. Tables were set up with simple food. Even Commander Bren helped arrange things. At moonrise, the people gathered. 3 Warbrides stood in a circle. Tom stepped into the center wearing a white tunic. Velra joined him, now dressed in ceremonial armor, polished and glowing with blue markings. She held a silver band in her hand. Tom held another, One of the Warbrides spoke in her language. Velra and Tom repeated the words, line by line. When they finished, they placed the silver bands around each other's wrists. Velra touched her forehead to his. We are now bound, not just by vow, but by choice. The people clapped, some cheered. Others watched with quiet respect. After the ceremony, Tom stood with Velra under the stars. So he said, are we really married now? In body, mind, and duty, she replied. He smiled. Then I guess I have a war bride. She looked at him and smiled back. And I have a bondmate worth fighting for. The colony was quiet that night, but in the deep stars, something darker had awakened. The signal sent by Velra had reached more than just her own kind. A storm was coming. But now, the colony stood ready, and at the heart of it stood a human and a war bride together. The days after the joining ceremony were full of hope and hard work. The colony was no longer just a small outpost on the edge of space. It had become a symbol of new strength and unity. Humans and war brides worked side by side, learning from each other and preparing for the challenges ahead. Velra and the other war brides taught the colonists how to fight better and how to use their old technology. Tom helped by repairing machines and designing new defenses. His simple skills became important in ways he never expected. One morning, while Velra trained in the courtyard, Tom noticed ships arriving in the sky. They were not like the black ships from before. These ships were larger, with bright lights and shining surfaces. The colony's sensors picked up their signals. Velra paused her training and looked up. They have come. The ships landed gently near the colony. Warriors in armor stepped out. They were like Velra, pale with silver eyes and strong bodies. They bowed before her and spoke in her ancient language. Tom watched as the group gathered in the command center. Velra introduced him as her bondmate. The new arrivals nodded with respect. These are my people, Velra explained, the last of the vampire warbride clans. They slept in hidden chambers for centuries, waiting for the call. Now they are awake. Tom felt a mix of awe and nervousness. So many powerful beings had come to this small colony. He wondered if he was ready to stand beside them. Velra smiled and placed her hand on his shoulder. You have already stood beside me through fire and war. You are ready. Together, the new warbrides helped strengthen the colony's defenses. They brought weapons and technology lost to time. Walls were reinforced with energy shields. New drones patrolled the skies. The colony felt safer than it had in decades. But with power came new challenges. The leaders of other colonies and planets noticed the rising force. Some sent messages of support. Others sent warnings or demands. Earth itself sent a small fleet to investigate. Tom and Velra stood together when the fleet arrived. The Earth commander spoke carefully. We have orders to bring Velra and her people under control. The commander said, your actions threaten the balance of power. Velra replied with calm strength. We do not seek war. We seek alliance and peace. But we will defend ourselves. Tom stepped forward. This colony is home. We choose who protects it. The commander paused, then nodded slowly. We will watch, but be warned. As the fleet left, Tom and Velra knew the fight was not over. The galaxy was changing. Old powers feared the new alliance of humans and warbrides. Velra held a meeting with her people. The Zern will come again, she said, and others will try to stop us. We must be ready. But we must also be strong in unity. Tom listened as the warbrides shared stories of their past battles and hopes for the future. They spoke of honor, loyalty, and sacrifice. Tom felt honored to be part of their world. Days passed, and the colony grew stronger. Tom and Velra's bond deepened. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses. Velra taught Tom how to fight. Tom taught Velra about human ways of trust and kindness. One night, under a bright full moon, Velra stood in the garden and looked at Tom. We have faced the past and the present, she said. Now we must face the future. Together. Tom took her hand. Whatever comes, we will stand. As one, the colony was ready. The warbrides had returned. And the galaxy would soon know that the old legends were alive once more. The colony of Rust Point stood quiet beneath the stars, but the peace was fragile. News from distant systems spoke of growing tensions. The ancient enemies of the Warbrides were gathering. The galaxy was on the edge of a new conflict. Tom and Velra knew this day might come. Their bond was stronger now. They had fought side by side and learned to trust each other deeply. Velra's warriors had trained the colony's defenders. The humans had adapted quickly. Inspired by the strength and honor of the Warbrides, one morning, as the sun rose over the dusty plains, a message arrived. A fleet of unknown ships was approaching fast. Their shape was strange, dark, and sleek. Unlike any known design, the colony's sensors could not identify their origin. Velra gathered her Warbrides and the colony leaders in the command center. Tom stood beside her, ready. "We do not know their intent," Velra said, "but we will be ready." The fleet landed outside the colony walls. Ships opened their hatches and soldiers poured out. They wore armor that shimmered like dark crystals. Their faces were hidden behind smooth helmets. They moved with silent precision. The leader of the newcomers stepped forward. She removed her helmet, revealing sharp features and eyes that glowed faintly blue. "I am Commander Nira," she said. "We come from the Dominion of Shadows. We have heard of your Warbrides and your human allies. This cannot continue." Velra stepped forward. "We seek peace. We defend our home and honor." Nira smiled coldly. "Peace or power? Your kind stirs old fears. The Dominion will not allow you to grow." Tom clenched his fists. "This colony will decide its own fate," Nira's. Soldiers raised their weapons. The first shot was fired. The battle was fierce and long. The Dominion soldiers were skilled and well-equipped, but the Warbrides fought with fierce loyalty and ancient strength. Tom helped coordinate defenses and repair damage under fire. The colony's defenders held their ground. Velra moved like a whirlwind, cutting through enemies and protecting those who fought beside her. Her Warbrides showed no fear. Tom saw the determination in their eyes. This was more than a fight for survival. It was a fight for a new future. After hours of battle, the Dominion forces began to retreat. Nira called for a ceasefire. "We will return," she warned, "but not today." Velra stood tall. "Then we will be here." The colony cheered. Though battered, they had survived. In the days that followed, Tom and Velra worked to rebuild. The bond between humans and Warbrides grew stronger. The people of Rust Point no longer saw Velra as just a stranger from the stars. She was family. One evening, as the sky turned pink with sunset, Velra and Tom sat together outside. They looked at the stars that had once brought them together. Velra spoke softly. "This is only the beginning, but together we are stronger than any shadow." Tom smiled. "I asked for a wife as a joke, but you became so much more. You are my partner, my protector, my future." Velra reached out and took his hand. "And you are mine." The stars above seemed to shine brighter. The galaxy was wide and full of danger, but Rust Point was ready because in its heart stood a human and a Warbride. Bound by honor and choice, a new dawn had come.